It is the time of day when we talk about the thinking kinds of things, the planning kinds of things, that missing kind of puzzle. Sometimes you can teach a skill to a child and teach a skill to a child and you chain them all together and you got something, but there's still one element that's missing. A lot of times it's the executive functions part of the puzzle. Thinking things through, looking at it and saying, what's happening here? What's the goal? What's preventing us from the goal? What do we need to do to fix that so that we can get back to the goal? How do we need to be flexible around this problem so that we can fix it and get back to the goal? Those are all executive functions kind of issues. And what I want to talk about today is simple problem solving. This is something that we can do. You know, a lot of times when we talk about executive functions on the show here, I feel like you guys are thinking, oh, well, that's for the older kids. That's for the older kids that are, 10 and 12 and 14. Sure, there are those kinds of things that are in the executive functions arena. But there are things that we can do with very little kids, that will help them to get ready for the bigger executive functions things. So today I want to take on simple problem solving. Later we can worry about complex problem solving, right? But when we want to teach simple problem solving to a child, of course we want to make sure we're not starting this with a 1-year-old, and we're not starting this with a child who has no receptive language skills and no functional communication skills, right? We have to get those things on board a little bit first. So those are the prerequisites. But fairly quickly after a child gets some functional communication skills, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, and once they are able to receptively be able to understand some simple words, then we can get started on this. So what we want to do first of all is to contrive or find a situation which has a simple problem. Now, if we contrive it, we're creating a problem, right? And it can be as simple as looking at a picture in a magazine that has somebody doing something that doesn't match, right? Or it can be, one of the things I remember, anytime something happened in our house that was a problem, and a simple problem, not a life-shattering or earth-shattering problem. I can remember once there was orange juice spilled on the floor, and I went to clean it up, and the therapist was like, no, this is a moment. We're going to take this moment. And he brought my son over to where there was the spill on the floor and asked me not to say anything, but said to here was the problem. He found the simple problem. And then the next thing that the therapist or the teacher or the parent says to the child is, what's wrong? And asking the child to look around and identify what's wrong in the situation. And then in whatever way that the child currently can communicate, we want the child to point or say or talk to us through a device, but it could be as simple as pointing to the orange juice, right? And saying, with their finger, that's what's wrong here. And then after the child has identified it, then we can ask, what can you do? How can we fix this? What should we do? What needs to happen? Whatever way that you want to language it for the individual situation, what needs to happen? And then allowing the child to communicate in the way that they're able to do that. Sometimes, if it's something like that, an orange juice spill on the floor, a child will go to the closet where the mop is. Or they'll go to the cabinet that has the paper towels in it, right? But, and if they don't, we might say to a child, what's wrong? And in the beginning, the child, has no idea what we're talking about. And so what we do is we language it for them and take them over and go, look, there's orange juice on the floor. Something's wrong. What should we do? And really over-dramatic about it. It's okay to be over-dramatic about it because we want them to be a part of it. We want them to be interested. What should we do? And depending on the child, and their age and their skill level and their ability, we might want to start with just one thing, but eventually we'd give multiple solutions. Should we mop it? We could mop it. Should we get it with a paper towel? We could do that. Are you going to do it, or mom going to do it, right? We could talk about those because we never want it to be that, when there's an orange juice spill, we always clean it up with paper towels. That's not going to help us with our flexibility issues down the road. But starting those moments, contriving the problem, sometimes your day just is like, right? And stuff is just happening left, right, and center, and you go, oh, and this is the moment where I break the piece of china or whatever. But remember that those are great teaching moments, because you can, when something like that happens, you go, uh-oh, what happened? Or what's wrong? And allow the child a moment to, at least look at it or point at it or grunt at it or say broken, and you can language it for them. You can prompt them, and prompt them through the process of what can we do about it. We always want to remember to reinforce approximations. The child who points at it today and gets rewarded for pointing at it, and we language it for that child and say, oh, spill, mess, whatever, and they get reinforced just for pointing, will often start saying mess or spill or whatever, because they know they're communicating and they do want to communicate. So we always reinforce approximations, and we prompt when necessary. If you've got the child who, you say what's wrong and they don't see it all, then we show them and go, look at this. It's a mess. Even now, there are sometimes, because I have a child with a Y chromosome, he will sometimes go and get in the refrigerator to get something and not always remember to shut the refrigerator door. And, because I belong to the NAG society, that I want to go, you need to shut the refrigerator door, right? But when I remember to be my better parenting self, what I say to him is, dude, something's wrong. What's wrong with this picture? And he looks and he goes, oh, the refrigerator door. And now I don't have to say to him, so what do you want to do about it? He goes over and he shuts it, because he knows. But, when he was 3, we were saying to him, well, what should we do? And then he would go over and shut the door. And I hope before he's 21 that he will just remember to shut the refrigerator door every time. But, we work on these things. We work on these things. In any case, introducing simple problem solving to our children is not that difficult. Problems will come up from time to time. We keep a sense of humor about it. Let them see that the world isn't coming to an end, but identifying the problem and identifying at least one solution. And over time, as the child, finds this more and more reinforcing, we can introduce all kinds of solutions. I'm fascinated sometimes when I do say to my son, well, what should we do about that? And he comes up with a solution that I never even occurred to. And sometimes it's better than mine. So that's a really fun thing. So simple problem solving, something to do with our kids.